There's no doubt that when it comes to heating our homes or driving anywhere, the future is electric.
But what does that mean for Maine's power grid? Will it be able to handle the additional load? We asked News Center Maine's Keith Carson to find the answers.
And Keith, at least for the short term, it seems things are rather encouraging.
Yeah, that's right, Pat. While Governor Mills wants to see 100,000 more heat pumps in homes by 2030, there's no telling how many will be installed by then. It could be more or it could be less. As for EVs, supply chain issues continue to hamper sales. Many people want them, they just can't get their hands on them. So as part of our series on Maine's changing climate, we set out to answer the question, when supply does meet demand for heat pumps and EVs, how ready is our electrical grid?
As more and more auto companies announce their gas-free futures, there are some logistical questions that arise. One I hear often after doing a story on electric vehicles is, can our grid actually handle an all-electric future? That's a fair question, especially when you consider there have been instances in California of utility companies asking EV owners not to charge during certain peak demand events. And it's not just electric vehicles that will increase the strain on electricity generation and delivery. A move away from oil and propane towards heat pumps will also require extra juice. So how much energy do these devices use? Well, it depends on the exact conditions, but we can ballpark. A typical level 2 electric vehicle charger that you might have installed at your home will draw about 30 amps. Heat pumps tend to run more in the 10 to 20 amp range if they're being asked to provide a lot of heating or, rarely in Maine, a lot of cooling. A few items many Mainers already have in their homes draw a similar current. An electric clothes dryer, for example, can draw up to 30 amps, and electric ranges can draw 30 to 50 amps. These are all high electricity draws, but some of them, especially the stove and the clothes dryer, might be used for fewer hours per day compared to an EV charger, although I guess it depends how much laundry you have to do in your house. Back to the point, I talked to Phil Bartlett from the Maine Public Utilities Commission about whether Maine's grid is ready for the electrification movement.
I think in the short term, medium term, we're in pretty good shape. Maine has not had a lot of load growth in recent years in either CMP or Versant territory. So there's room to add electric vehicles and heat pumps to the grid without needing major investments.
But he says over time, as there are more EVs on the road, especially fleets of them for governments or companies, there'll be more stress on the grid and significant upgrades will be needed. So in the short term, we're fine. But what if it all happened overnight?
If everybody got one tomorrow, would that be a problem?
I mean, if everyone got one tomorrow, I think we'd be looking at a possibility of constraints on the grid. And really what it would boil down to is, do we have enough supply in certain pockets to meet the demand?
So if the grids are ready, why do places like California sometimes ask EV owners not to charge their cars?
Generators have gone down. Some weather events have happened that have taken generation offline, and therefore there just isn't the electricity supply that's needed. And therefore the governments will step in and the utilities will step in and ask people to use less electricity during certain hours.
One of the main factors driving heat pump adoption in particular is the savings versus a fossil fuel system. But with fossil fuel futures driving up the cost of electricity generation, both the PUC and CMP are aware that they must keep electrification the more economical option if they want Mainers to keep buying in.
Yeah, well, that is a huge concern as we see, supply prices increase for our customers. You start to think about the comparison of your energy wallet and what's the actual financial cutoff for where it becomes economical for you to stay and move to electricity and increase your consumption.
All right, so in the end, Pat and Amanda, Maine's power grid is apparently ready to take on the electrified heating and driving, at least at the current rates that everything's being adopted. And I think it's clear so far, guys, that heat pumps are going to be adopted faster in Maine than electric vehicles, most likely.
Makes sense. Thanks, Keith.